Hello and welcome to the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy.
Hello, we're Raka and Izzy at Dead Air Dudes. It's been a minute. I'd like to take a moment to thank all the fans that still listen, download. We have been both going through some personal stuff. It was a rough January,
Yes,
but we love the support. We love the fact you keep us still in mind. You're still tuned in, and we're back to give you real, raw, unfiltered content.
as
And
best as.
here we go.
All right, now for all everyone knows that we're wrestling fans as well as fans of everything else, and one of the better films that have has come out this year, or was it end of last year?
End of last year,
End of last,
very end. I'm talking about the last 2 weeks.
and the Iron Claw, which is based off the true story of the Von Erich family. Okay, and we're gonna have we're gonna review it, and we're gonna contrast and compare real life of what happened and what was somewhat fictionalized in the film. Okay, as well as at the same time talk about wrestling and the state of wrestling as it is right now. Okay, so that being said, Rocka, take it away. Give us a little synopsis of the Iron Claw.
All right. So A24, which is a primarily horror, paranormal, um, dark
Definitely the
production company.
indie, very, award show driven company that mainly, deals with, you know,
Yeah, the darker side of things. But in my opinion, they've been vastly successful. If you look at the percentage of quality movies as opposed to, flops.
right.
Here they go a little bit out of their safety zone and they go into a wrestling movie, a biopic. And of course, there's some changes. Now, this is, like you said, this is the Von Erich family based in Texas through the eyes of Carrie, right?
Actually, Kevin, the
I'm
the
sorry. Yeah, I mix them all the time. My bad, Kevin, who is, again, we're spoiling a few things because it's necessary. We're not going to give you these huge spoilers here, but
spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler because
yeah,
anyone,
it's a bio.
and we all know that the Von Erich may not know the details, but the Von Erichs have gone through a crazy amount of hardship and
A tragedy.
a lot of tragedy. And the sole survivor of the Von Erich family is Kevin Von Erich, or as he's really known, Kevin Ross Atkinson. Okay.
Yes, because they took the dad took this name. I think it's the maiden name or something, for his wrestling name, and it stuck for the show. But
Fred Von Erich.
yeah, but I mean, so it unfolds a little bit in the prehistory of the dad's up and coming into their present day life, which takes place roughly late 70s, 80s.
Yeah. Late 70s, 80s, where world class championship wrestling had its heyday from like
Right.
81,
And
86.
I like the in the forefront, don't want to alienate people in a sense of this is not a wrestling documentary.
No,
It's a dramatic piece.
it's Hollywood eyes, which is kind of one of my not issues, but one of my hot takes on the film. But we'll get into that. That's finish the synopsis, and then we'll dive right in.
All right, so then we'll just say from the get, there's been a few alterations to the true story to adapt it to the screen. One of the big glaring ones is, there's like the younger son, I think the teenage.
A whole brother they completely eliminated, which would have added even more depth and more tragedy to the Von Erichs. They completely forgot about.
Well, no, according to the screenwriters and the production company, they thought that would be too dramatic and turn off a lot of people that they switched it into the first son, which there is no first.
There are there's a first son, Jackie Jr., which is the oldest son. He
Yeah,
died in an
he
accident,
died young. Yeah,
died young. Something don't not. something happened. He got electrocuted and he fell and he drowned. Essentially, he drowned in the snow, and that's and he was the oldest son, but that was like super young, and then obviously Kevin.
The youngest son, and then the other one died in wrestling or due to a wrestling injury, and then three others due to suicide.
Yeah.
And
David, you had Mike, you had Chris, and you had Kerry. The order is that's the order. I mean, obviously Jackie, David 2, Mike 3, Chris 4, and Kerry is the last.
now he's not the most decorated. Carrie's the most decorated one.
Which
He's
is
the most successful.
exactly Kerry, which everyone would know Kerry Von Erich, or as some people who are of a certain generation would know, the Texas Tornado. Okay. And what people do not know, which is something that actually, when I rewatched a couple documentaries, he had his leg amputated and no
Yeah.
one knew. So when
No.
you're watching Texas Tornado, which is already messed up because they refused to let him even use the Von Erich name, Vince called him the Texas Tornado. After the initial introduction where he was Kerry Von Erich, after that, he was only referred to as a Texas Tornado. Okay.
And that was a dig by Vince because they had a feud, right? He's a rival company, but he had a feud to steal him away to get him to the quote unquote big leagues. So he stripped him of his name because he didn't want to advertise even the last name.
Vince, I mean, yeah, it's a dig, but
It's classic Vince.
Vince always was.
He had to be on top.
It was for money purposes. It was also for
It's a personal dig.
purposes as well, that you would be renamed and repackaged on the WWF at the time,
Yeah.
and therefore Vince can get all the profits, and that's just the only one to keep his name. Obviously, you had the Ultimate Warrior, and not to go on a tangent. Later on, who changed his name to Warrior, go figure, and of course Hulk Hogan. But Hulk, Incredible Hulk, when he hulked out, the WWF paid Marvel every single time they used Hulk Hogan because the Incredible Hulk. Okay. Up until the point where when the NWO happened, and not to get to like a tangent, but he went to Hollywood Hogan, eliminated the Hulk part, so they had to stop. They didn't have to pay Marvel any more money. Hollywood Hogan, and they would use the Hulkster. Hulk Hogan is hardly ever used anymore, technically.
And again,
Hulkster.
it's smart business, and it's Vince. Vince, for everything that he is bad, he was a marketing genius.
Yes. That one thing we can give him that yes, he was a marketing genius, but we'll get into that.
All right, back to the movie. So, what happens here is through the eyes of the last survivor, you see the tragedy of the family and the entanglement that is. It's not even covered up. It's pretty blatant. All fingers point to the dad.
Yes.
His raising style of parenting was hitting one against the other. Only the strong survives. Don't be weak. Don't cry. Don't do us. I mean, the ultra manhood thing. Then you have a mom who is subservient to the dad, checks with him on everything. And they're kind of posed as holy rollers.
Well, look, it goes back to the original plan of the dad. The dad was a former football player who couldn't make it pro, and he was considered a very, very good wrestler. And when given the opportunity, he went heel. And for all those who do not know, you have heels and you have baby faces. The baby face are the good guys, and the heels are the bad guys. So Fritz Von Erich, at the time, Fritz Atkinson, changed his name to Fritz Von Erich, and he became a Nazi. And he was the heel of heels, one of the greatest heels in the history of wrestling. He invented the Iron Claw, which is the move which they show a couple times, which is essentially you get your hand, right or left hand, whatever your dominant hand is, and you put it towards the forehead of the opponent, and you squeeze the quote unquote life out of them. So therefore, that's kind of,
that was his signature move.
His signature move. And he was a heel, and he was a bad guy. He never actually won the world title. which
You complain to the whole movie, never was given that shot.
but heels when are the only you have to have a and it was a different time. It was a different time because that type of heel is a type of heel that is there to make the good guys, the baby faces look good. Okay. He's not
Right.
the Ric Flair type, which by the way, let me just say that the actor that they got to play Ric Flair in the movie was absolutely horrible. Was one of the worst things in the film. It was a caricature and a terrible, terrible choice. I'm shocked that MJF actually allowed that. So
Well, and then they had some spot.
played Flair better than freaking than this guy did. Sorry, that's just
Well, same thing. Oh, how do you think about the Harley Race character?
Harley Race was actually pretty decent. Harley Race, I mean,
Because I mean, again, for all those that don't know, I mean,
looked like
we
Harley
you know,
Race. Bruiser Brody. I mean, had a small role. You had a
right. We can't go through this movie without telling you a little in depth some backdrop to wrestling world at that time. Like you said, WWF was not the thing yet. There's a lot of local and regional spots that own their domain, and at the same time, for all those, and I'm not starting a fight with nobody, but for all those people that say wrestling's fake, the only fake thing with wrestling is it's a predetermined script,
exactly.
right?
Everything is
But
fake.
back in the day, you got slammed on concrete. You got busted open. Let's say, show me some color. You got busted open for real. There wasn't today's world with razor blades. They really took it to you, and you got paid peanuts.
Right.
There's no insurance. There's no concussion protocol. There's none of this crap. So you literally gave your life to the business.
This is I mean there was, but who knew about it at that time? I mean,
it's interwoven here because you could tell this is how the brother died. This is how Kevin's first body slam on the concrete, kind of altered his perspective. Do I want to do this?
keep it in perspective. I mean, not to interject, that how is it possible that Kerry Von Erich was working in the WWF and no one knew that his foot was fucking amputated?
Later, one or two people who are close, post his death, came out and said that they knew. For example, don't quote me, I believe it was Rowdy Piper. He had said, God, I love Piper. He was comfortable with him in the hotel room. Only him and a select few people.
That's one thing they don't go into the film.
I know.
But then
it was a 5-hour film.
But everybody did. In the 80s, everybody did. You could watch all these documentaries. Everybody, even Bret Hart has said, everybody partied. Everybody partied.
Oh, yeah.
Was like was they drinking water, amphetamines and sleeping pills and
steroids.
Pain medication was just rampant everywhere. So it's
look, again, on the business side of it all, they, meaning the ownership, didn't give a rat's ass about your health. They wanted you to show for the show.
Yeah.
And they wanted you to show up massive and cut and have no pain in despite the fact that you're dying. And it's not just then. Kurt Angle wrestled with a broken neck.
Mm-hmm.
They allowed it. Who allows this? And okay, it's a different world today, you hope. But back then, just like the brother who died was vomiting blood.
Yeah.
So, not to get on a preachy tangent about the wrestling world, the movie itself, what it does well, really well, is the camera leads you a lot. And it's great. You don't have to tell every bit. And it helps you draw into the action, the mindset, the emotion. I really, really appreciate about the movie. Yeah. Now, I understand you have some issues with the actual script and character traits.
I mean, obviously, I already mentioned about the Ric Flair, the character. I mean, I think it's a huge issue, a huge omission, the character of Chris Von Erich, because it's not, and they don't really get into the downfall or how dire the situation was with the Von Erich family. Okay, we got to remember that as Rocca mentioned, you had all these territories, and each territory had an owner, and they had their own wrestlers. Obviously, in Texas, World Class Championship Wrestling, which was the Von Erichs and Fritz Von Erich. They had their sons, and they were the superstars. And obviously, you had the NWA down south. You had the WWF at the time. You know, you had them on the East Coast, and they were gobbling up all these different territories. When Vince essentially, well, we can get into this later on, how he ripped off his father and basically
He took multi-million dollar, yeah, he took a multi-million-dollar loan out and started to um, siphon players away from the big stars with ridiculous money at the time, money you could not turn down. And at that time, there was an unwritten pact that you don't go into somebody's territory.
exactly.
Now he was violating all that because not only did he want to be the number one national network in the United States, he wanted to be global. That's why he did all these things in Japan and in Germany and in other places. And he did. He
So
made it into the household name that it is today
let's
on the
get
coattails of the Hulk Hogan.
back to the issues. The issue at hand, obviously, they did not mention, or they didn't really relay how good David Von Erich was. He was the superior of all the brothers, even though Kevin was the most athletic, while Kerry had the most charisma. David was the best of all of them, clearly by far. He was called the Yellow Rose of Texas. He was a superstar, superstar.
And he had excellent mic work.
As well as great in the ring. Okay. Now, he was primed for success, while the workhorse is obviously Kevin, while Kerry at the time, which I didn't even know, which this is what the movie told me, the whole the Olympic thing. I didn't know about that, but that was cool. And when when David passed, the omission that they had in the family as well as in the federation was enormous, was huge. Okay. That's when they had to bring in Kerry. And then that's when Mike, who did not want to be in the wrestling business, well, at least not like the other brothers, and he was not a great athlete. He tried real hard, and they kind of forced him. He didn't have the physique for it. You could look back at old YouTube videos, and I mean,
he was musically inclined. He had other aspirations, but in the movie they showed that he was indirectly or directly shut down.
And even
his personal things came second to the family.
Yeah, before and they showed just the glimpse of it in the movie where you actually see. I don't know if you noticed, you saw MJF actually he played Lance Von Erich, okay, and Lance wasn't really a Von Erich, but they needed someone to replace David. They needed someone to replace, and the fans knew that it was bullshit. He was not a Von Erich. They knew all the brothers. They knew. So they tried to push his character, and then when he failed, it was a whole big to-do. Then obviously that's when you push Mike to the moon, and then you push him to the point to exhaustion.
But let me say this in defense of the movie. I think they showed just enough of the wrestling world for you to know what's relevant to the storyline. No. And it seemed like they wanted the main thrust of the movie to be the family tragic downfall, to spiraling down.
Yeah, but you also got to see the point or the driving force of Fritz Von Erich, driving force of the family. That's got to come through, because right now all you're showing is tragedy, tragedy, tragedy. And you're saying, oh, this is messed up, poor family. But you really feel the pressure. You see it in the glimpses. I mean, I guess because I know the backstory.
Well, this is what I'm saying, is that unfortunately you're watching this movie and you have more backdrop than the casual fan that wants to watch this for the sake of, all right, there's some hot bodies, it's wrestling, it's a tragedy, it could be a little bit of biopic, it's a timepiece, whatever. If you can remove what you know.
If we did not talk about the physical shape these guys got in, they're from.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
looks like an absolute beast, way bigger than Kevin ever was. For the record,
Which again, I mean, okay, they put Alan White as the biggest one of the brothers.
and well, Kerry was the biggest. I mean, he was massive. Yet Kevin
Yeah.
Wallace, he was 6'6" or 6'6" 220 about. While I think Kerry was more within
6'3".
2'4" and like probably 250, 240, 250. And obviously, David was taller, but a more leaner, I guess. Well, Mike,
Yeah, but he looked like he was 6'7" in real life. He was a tall.
but these guys got in massive shape, But
And again, I think I'm assuming here it's Bandai. It's a little bit done in this by design that they don't completely mirror the characters. And
yeah,
a lot of it also is they went after the casting was phenomenal though. I know, other than
I would have.
Flair,
I would have. I mean, and I would have flipped. I would have flipped the. I mean, size wise, physically, I probably would have flipped at Jeremy White and Efron. But I mean, I get it. I mean, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I guess. Yeah.
all right. Other pet peeves you have.
I mean, obviously, the big issue eliminating freaking one of the brothers that was enormous, and I think that they didn't.
Well, because I think it was a teenage suicide.
But it was suicide.
I know, but it's one of those things where I understand what the writer says, where
Mike
it's
killed
like
himself. Chris killed himself. Kerry killed himself.
it's one of those things where I understand their point of view.
It's suicide.
I understand the point of view in the sense that it's like we over and over repeat.
Mike Oakley,
You
Kerry
have enough.
the heart, and Chris shot himself as well.
All right, so
I mean, well, I didn't see it, but they should have had a whole one of those suicide things at the end. They should have had.
well, yes, they should. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say: is that it gets repetitive to the point that it may rob from the movie because it's a movie.
Part of the issue with A24, you want to glamorize and you want to freaking put a little beautiful little spin on a fucked up story. I mean, that's messed up. If you're gonna show it, show it. Now, if you're telling me that Kevin, and I don't think, because he wasn't even one of the executive producers, he wasn't even part of the writing from the credits. But MJF is one of the executive producers.
Yes. Yes.
Now, maybe because I've seen documentaries and I've seen Kevin from his mouth recount these stories, in full detail, where he's freaking breaking down to talk about it. So it's not like he's not willing to talk about it. I mean, but
all right. So I'm going to ask you for a favor. Okay. Take a second to breathe, exhale, and forget about all the wrestling history and backdrop you know about. As a movie standalone, how did it entertain you or not?
All right. As a movie, it was entertaining.
I'm asking you to pretend you know nothing about wrestling and you went to see this movie.
It was entertaining. It was sad in all the right points, all the right moments, I guess. And, it kind of gives you a quasi happy ending at the end, of course. I mean, so yeah, it works. I mean, but
that's the thing. That's the thing. We're critiquing a movie, and unfortunately, we can't separate ourselves from the history because we know the history. But as a movie itself,
it's not a Best Picture nominee. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not.
What holds it back?
Because
it's not the history or elevation, and it's kind of like saying, "Oh, they didn't stick to canon."
But it's not only that. But I mean, but there's complete issues. There's the whole point of it is missing. I mean, because yes, they kind of paint Fritz as an asshole, which he was, but you also missed the whole point that the boys, that all the brothers, they to this day, they love their dad. And it was their quote unquote duty. It was for the family, for the brothers. I mean, they thought, even though internally, obviously, they didn't kill him because it was sad. Because they felt that they were bringing everybody down, and they were so unhappy about that.
No, but it's like that syndrome which escaped me right now.
Which they completely miss. Fritz actually dies a very painful death. He gets brain cancer for years. Well, I don't say for years. I'm not
I
sure
know,
about.
but you don't have to
And
know
then
each and every detail of the
he
family.
tells his dad, and he misses his dad, and so if you know that, then you're like, shit. I mean, they kind of went with an agenda. They went with a direction of how to tell a story, which I understand. I get that. But knowing that, I can't just turn that off.
Oh, I understand. But it's kind of like what you mentioned. It's kind of like that syndrome where you end up loving your captive.
What, Stockholm? Not Stockholm.
Yeah, so yeah, Stockholm, where it's like you already been brainwashed through your whole life to believe that this person cared for you, looked after you, did everything for you,
point. Yes, that's a very good point.
and no matter what, they can do the most heinous things to you because you know nothing better, and because this is the only thing you've known, and you appreciate it for whatever reason. You've grown to admire and adore this individual who, to the outside person, was the world's greatest asshole.
That's probably what happened. 100%. Yeah. I mean, 100%. Probably that.
I mean, okay, so I guess to wrap things up, I loved it more than you loved it. I say you liked it.
Well,
I can remove a little bit
out of
the
10,
backdrop.
what do you give out of 10? Go ahead.
Oh, I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I think you loved it more than that.
I'm removing the backdrop. I'm going by what's presented to me, how it was presented to me, everything, the picture, the cutscenes. For example, one great cutscene where he just wins the belt, right? And he's home, he's partying, and he's kind of all alone. Like, I really won this. I can't believe it. It's so surreal. I came from getting cut from the Olympics. I came from coming back home. I've done this for the family. I've done this for the dad. I don't know what to do. I have so much energy. I'm sure he's coked up and everything else. And I'm gonna go for a ride. And all you see is the motorcycle. Then the next scene, you see getting up in the morning, the alarm, and then you see just a crutch. And then it moves towards a bigger picture of taking pills and then getting orange juice, and you close the refrigerator door, and then you see the amputated foot. I thought it was, what, that was masterful.
I thought they wouldn't have the balls to do that. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I thought they were going to probably ignore the whole thing, or maybe not even show it, just kind of mention it in the pen passing.
What I'm saying is how they showed it, and how they showed other things was pretty powerful. And from just a sole film critique, I mean, so with scenes like that, very powerful funeral scenes, matches, scenes with him and his wife, and all that stuff. From a film, I'm just taking it from a straight film point of view. I thought it was captivating and enjoyable. Um, I'm not talking about the validity, the accuracy, and all that stuff. As just a casual fan watching it, I thought it was a well done movie, and that's how I would give it an 8.
It was definitely well done. It was, but obviously you can't.
Well acted.
I keep saying the acting was fine. Efron was good.
Everyone was phenomenal.
Everybody was good, and the fact that, because I did read this, that they did not allow him to cry up until the last scene. It was up to the last death. It was very it was brought home to Efron that he could not cry up until the end. When he broke down and the whole thing. I don't know. I mean, I've been watching a lot of not based on true stories and not documentaries, but everything based on that. And
it can color your opinion because you know what.
And sometimes going in not knowing is better than going in knowing, because you're kind of waiting for that moment to happen. Oh, are they going to show this? Oh, are they going to show that? Oh, they forgot about Chris. Oh, what about Lance?
Because instead of a blank slate, you go in there with pre-made landscape, and you're.
That's what's been going on. That's for decades now. Because now everything in Marvel, everything in DC, everything in
exactly canon, genre, Star Wars, everything.
Moment to happen. Oh, you're waiting for the Red Wedding. Well, in Game of Thrones, you're waiting for to happen, and everything is just so you're waiting for that.
Yeah. It robs you of that surprise factor because.
Exactly. And if it does not hit, then it fails, or at least perceptionally it fails.
All right, your closing thoughts and ratings?
Well, if you give it an A, I mean, I thought you were gonna give it probably 9, which I was gonna
No, I give it a pretty good 8.
you give it an A. I probably give it, I mean, a strong 6, maybe,
Oh, okay.
maybe six and
I
a
mean,
half.
I'm just saying because there aren't a lot of movies that hit it me past 7.5.
I mean, and obviously people say, "Oh, well you gave this movie a 6.5." Every rating is not the same. I take every movie individually, and what maybe a 6 as a horror movie or a 7
Right.
is
And,
not
and you're judging it amongst its peers too, against other horror movies, against
exactly.
other biopics, against other wrestling movies.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
like The Wrestler, I thought was a better movie, but more because it didn't have, like you said, it didn't have anything to compare it to.
yeah.
It didn't have a biopic attached. It was a straight up journey of his character in The Wrestler.
And mind you, I
And
was I was going into this actually thinking really looking forward to it, but then I rewatched a documentary last
oh, you should not have done that.
but no, to keep it fresh in my mind of what happened, and I wanted to compare, but I didn't think that um it would not change my
Pale.
but kind of like contrasted so differently comparatively speaking. But it's a good film. It's a good film, and I appreciate that people like it, and it will probably shed light and to more wrestling films, and because you want tragedy,
Oh
wrestling is
yeah, yeah. It's a bottomless pit. And for everybody out there, hold on. Soon we're gonna have a pre-WrestleMania video. We're gonna have a recap of the Elimination Chamber matches. We're gonna have a backdrop with everything terrible that's going on in the backdrop, with obviously Vince, with Brock, with Triple H, with The Rock, with the board, Khan, you name it, because there's a lot going on. This is like kayfabe becoming real. It's getting a little crazy.
I mean,
It's getting crazy. All right, so listen, that is the Iron Claw. If you do like it, that is the A24 flick, latest coming out. They've stepped out of their comfort zone. We recommend what we recommend. It's not a terrible film in Izzy's eyes. I thought it was a very good film in my eyes. Go check it out. Hold on for more content, especially wrestling and horror wise from us. We're also going to try to bring to you a good preview before every month of movies that are coming out for the month and what we expect from that and their showing. We'd like to say again, thank you for tuning in and keeping us alive through some hard personal times. This is life, everybody. And we appreciate you all.
yeah, as usual, save the whales, and I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka. Take care. Till next time.
Take care, guys.